driveway. He goes, sir, you have the New Jersey Police Department. He goes, I know. I need you to come plow my driveway. He goes, sir, you have the New Jersey Police Department. He goes, I know, you're a public servant, aren't you? He said, come plow my damn driveway. Jim goes, I gotta see who the fuck this guy is. He goes there in his Les Paul. Go ahead, that's a good thing, right? So he goes over, plows the driveway. There's a 30-year friendship that comes out of that one random act of kindness. So if you get a chance to do something, do it. It could be Les Paul. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jim Wysocki, Mayor of Mahwah, New Jersey.
I don't usually speak to microphones. Can you hear me without it or? No. Sorry about that. Here we go. I'm Jim Wysocki. I'm a retired police officer from the Township of Mahwah, and thank you for coming. Before we get into it, I'm going to introduce, like I do every show, our team. It consists of Tim Fazikis. He's our program director. He's from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. This is probably my wife. No, actually, it's the governor's office in New Jersey. We're not going to talk to him. We will not talk to him today. So, I'm not lying. That was the governor's office. But I introduce our team every show we do. Tim Fazikis is a very vital part of this. He does all the scheduling. He does all the technical work with our advertising. He was unable to be here. He really doesn't travel with us that much. We travel around the country. The other person is seated at the bar, Joe Ulrich. He's a childhood friend of mine, and he is a dear friend of Les Paul's. If you need something answered about Les Paul, I can't answer it. He knows. He's part of this forever. The other two people I always introduce, without them, I wouldn't be able to do this, putting up with my Les Paul nonsense. And that's my wife, Dawn, my daughter, Deirdre. They're unable to be here. But if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be able to do this. And I count my blessings. They let me do it. Again, I'm Jim Wysocki. I'm a retired police officer in the Township of Mahwah. I joined the police department in October of 1981. And as Tony was saying, let me jump back a minute. I got to thank Tony Bullard for putting this together. Thank you, Tony. Everyone here at Scandals, thank you. The staff, you've been wonderful. It's going to be a lot of fun. But what happened was, I retired from the police department in 1981, and in that year of October, I joined. And in December, I was working the police desk. And as I'm working the police desk, we had a snowstorm. And about 11 o'clock, my shift was over at midnight. The phone rang, and my lieutenant said, "Hey, rookie, answer the phone." So I picked the phone out of the cradle. That's how long ago it was. And I said, "Hello, Mahwah Police." And the voice on the other end said these exact words: "Howdy, this is Les Paul." Well, I didn't own a guitar, didn't play the guitar, didn't play a musical instrument, and I had no idea who Les Paul was. So, as Tony said, he was looking for someone to plow his driveway. So I went over, plowed his driveway. And when I left, I came down the driveway. It was a big hill, and I started to slide. Well, what happened was I slid off this driveway and I took out his mailbox. Well, I don't mean I took out the mailbox. I took out the mailbox. So what happened was I did what any 19-year-old kid would do at the time. I parked the truck, got out, picked the mailbox up and threw it further in the woods and left. All right? So I was like, this guy ain't going to remember anything. I don't know who he is. So I go home, and the following week, I'm on my couch and the phone rings. So I answer it, and it's a lady. She said, her name's Arlene. She's at Les Paul's house. Well, right away, my heart goes into my stomach because I'm thinking, their mailbox. So she said, Les Paul would like to see you. I'm like, no, it's not a big deal. I don't need to go over there. So she talks me into going over. I go into the house. First thing I'm hit with is this aroma of an old, musty house. So I go in, and there's boxes around the entire patio, they called it. And at the time, again, I didn't know who he was, didn't know what he did. But later on, I learned that those boxes were all guitars. So I go to the kitchen counter. There's a little old man back there with a guitar. He comes out, puts the guitar down, shakes my hand. He said, thank you for plowing my driveway. I want to give you something. I'm like, no. I just want to get the hell out of there because I'm waiting for the mailbox. So he said, no, I want to give you something. So what he does, he goes over and he hands me these 4 cassette tapes. These are the actual cassette tapes he handed me. And he said, this is the music I like. I want to give it to you. I'm like, this guy's nuts. He's an old man. It's like, Bing Crosby music. So I take it and I turn around to leave. So as I start to leave, he goes, wait. I'm like, here it comes. So I turn around, he goes, do you play the guitar? I said, no. He goes, I'll be right back. So he goes in the back room, comes out with a little guitar, and he goes, here's 3 chords. If you look in the back of this book later on, you'll see the piece of paper where he wrote an E, A, and a D chord. He showed me how to play it. He said, in a week, come back. I said, okay. So I took the guitar, I took the tape, and I'm walking. He goes, wait, one more thing. I'm like, God, here comes that mailbox. So as I turn around, he's holding up a bottle of champagne. And he goes, do me a favor, on a very special day, open this bottle of champagne. What's so big about it? Now remember, I don't know who this guy is. He goes, well, years ago, the airplane company, is how he said it, came out with a new plane, and they wanted me to go on it. I said, what plane was it? He's like, he looks at his girlfriend, SST Concorde. I said, you went on it? He goes, yeah, everybody was going on it. And I said, who? He goes, Eric, Jeff, Paul. I was like, who? He goes, McCartney, Beck, and Clapton. Who else? So I'm like, who the hell is this guy? So when I left the house, I went right to the library. We didn't have computers in '81. First book I look at had a Les Paul name, right? So I look at it, and I said, that can't be him, inventor of the back. Go to another book, and not only did it have his name, it had a picture, and it was him. So when I went back the following week, I had an idea who the hell it was. So I leave the house, I got the guitar, I got the champagne bottle. I just want to hold it up for you just to show you. It travels with me wherever we go. And this is the actual bottle. I haven't opened it yet, but it says especially selected by British Airways. And he wrote a note on it, said, to Jim, my pal from Les Paul. That was the first thing I ever got. I never opened it. These stories are just crazy.
We'll open it tonight.
You got it, my man. So I go home, I come back, and as I come back, I bring the guitar, and he's sitting at the counter. I said, how you doing, Mr. Paul? He goes, it's Les now, we're friends. I said, okay, Les, how are you? He goes, did you learn the chords? I said, yeah. I'm telling you, I am the best EAD chord player in the world. Basically what I know. And he goes, slow down, too fast, slow down. So he's behind the counter, he takes the guitar, and I'm sitting there. I said, Les, you know what? I read all about you. I said, you invented the guitar for Gibson, you were endorsed by him in the 30s, 40s. I said, what was with that Danny Electro guitar you gave me? He goes, it's pronounced Dan Electro. And that guitar was given to me by the owner of Dan Electro named Nathan Daniels. He was a dear friend. It's a prototype guitar, and he gave it to me to make some improvements. He goes, and now I want to give it to you so you can learn to play and put it under your bed for a rainy day. I said, Les, I can't take that guitar. It's got to go to the museum. He goes, it's too late. He turned around and he said, because I already got your name on it, and this is the guitar. That's it. He always told Joe and I when we went to the house, put it under your bed for a rainy day. And as the story goes, you'll understand why we do this. We put together a little slideshow. We do have a problem with the brightness of the room. It's hard to see. I will read the, what it, yeah, might be a little better here, but yeah, just hit it, see if you.
Guitars.
What?
Guitars.
Oh,
Joe.
Tony, you want to come up here and move this?
I'm not touching them. Come on.
Everything up here has a story. I mean, a story. There's some funny ones, there's some sad ones, but everything up here, you see up here, came from Les Paul's house. You really don't need this to see it up. But we put this program together, so you can go ahead with the next slide. All right. His early years, he was born Lester Polfus, June 9th to Evelyn George Polfus. Right from the beginning, his mother knew he was very different. When his brother Ralph would turn the light switch on, he turned it on to see it. The light come on. When Les turned it on, he wanted to know how and why. At the age of 5, he was electrocuted over 3 times. Yep. 1923-26, his mother, these are some of the accomplishments when he was young. The harmonica you see up on stage is the actual harmonica that Les got. He was in his yard, and a construction guy was there, doing work, and every lunchtime he'd play the harmonica. Les talked the guy into giving him a harmonica, and Les took it, and that's the actual harmonica. I say this every show, you can come up, pick up anything, but don't put that to your mouth. Someone here will. Okay, that's from 1920, whatever, but if you want to, we're not responsible. At the age of 8, he built his first crystal radio. He learned sound and electronics from a guy in his father's shop. You can go. Player piano. Les wanted to change the music at the age of 7. What he did is he took the scroll and he punched his own holes in it and taped up the other holes. He changed the music. He was banned from the living room for over 2 years because his mother saw what he did. That's the harmonica. It's sitting up here if you want to take pictures. You can go grab it. If you're sitting there, you want to pass it around, you can pass it around. Okay. The first guitar was a Sears Troubadour. It was a 1928 model. Les was, I guess, 10, 11 years old at the time. Within 3 years, Les was fluent at the guitar. Okay. Early experiments, electrified the guitar, built his first cutting disc, and I'm going to get into this real quick early. Back in the 30s, 40s, anybody could make a record. You take a disc, a lathe, and you could cut a record. The band would play. But Les said, the band plays everything, but how do I get the band to play when they're not there? Meaning, he would play the rhythm section, he would record it. He goes, how do I get the bass section? So he had an idea. He moved the needle, and he played the bass. He goes, how do I get it to play back? He said, simple, 2 needles. He built another lathe, and he multi-tracked. There's a record up here called Trapeze. He'd have two parts here. He'd transfer them to another disc, bring that up, and he'd multi-track on that called Sound on Sound. Back here is 2 records that are in a frame. Those records are the record Lover. That's the first complete Sound on Sound record ever made. To make that record, he went through 500 discs, because when you made a mistake, you had to start all over. Those records right there. Now, I know I'm going to get an escort out of here tonight, but those records right there are probably valued at over $1 million. Wow. Okay, the railroad track. Everybody thinks that, or knows that Les Paul invented the log. Everybody knows the log, right? Les invented the railroad track. He had an idea. He was in his father, playing his guitar at a place called Beekman's Barbecue, and that was in downtown Waukesha. And he was playing in the back. You know, people were like, Les, we can hear your singing, hear your harmonica, we can't hear your guitar. He tried everything. He tried plaster of Paris in the guitar. He had a mic amplifier, it wouldn't work. So what he did is, he's sitting in his father's shop, he owned a car garage, and he started banging on something with a screwdriver. And it was ringing, and it caught his attention. It had sustain. So he's like, you know what? If you look on the railroad track, there's a little piece of, it looks like little rail. That's the actual piece Les was banging on. So he got his 3 friends, they went to the rail yard across the street and stole that rail. So what he did, he said, the telephone works like a microphone. He took the earpiece out of it, laid it on the railroad track, suspended a string with 2 railroad spikes, ran the wire from the inside of the telephone to his mother's radio. When he plucked the string, he had sustain and no feedback. That was the world's first solid body electric guitar. But Les's mother said, the day you see a cowboy driving down the road with that on their back, you got a problem. And that's, the years go by, we'll talk about the log, but that's the actual first solid body electric guitar right there. Okay, radio, Les in 1931, he knew that if I went to these radio stations, that's where I could get in with the electronics. He would go to Marquette University, and in exchange for playing music for him, they would clean his teeth in the dental school. Okay. In 1931, Les Paul would play guitar everywhere. They had this system with their friends. If something happened in the town, and the kids wanted to get a hold of something, they didn't have doorbells. So what they did is they tied a string to cans in your bedroom. If something was going on, they'd pull it, and it'd wake you up, and you'd go see. Well, Les took the string and tied it to his toe so he wouldn't miss it. Well, one of his friends said, Les, you got to come down to the Roadhouse. There's a guy playing below the 5th fret. Back in the day, it was all rhythm. Now, this guy, Sonny Joe, he had probably one of the biggest bands in the Midwest. He would go and hide in the bathroom, and he would watch him, and he'd write down the notes he'd play. So one night, after about 6 months, Sonny Joe caught on to him and said, what do you come in here every Sunday night? And he goes, I'm trying to see what you do, how to play the chords. He goes, do you play? Let's say, yeah, I'm pretty good. So he started playing with Sonny Joe every once in a while. What happened was Les was 16 and Sonny Joe asked him to join the band. With his mother's approval, he quit school and he joined Sonny Joe. At the time, Joe, I don't know, how much was he making?
$15 a night.
He was making $15 a night, and that was a lot of money back in those days. Okay. The World's Fair, Les travels with Sonny Joe throughout the upper Midwest, creates a name for himself and leaves Sonny Joe in 1935. A stage name, Les Paul, arrives. He forms the first Les Paul trio, okay? The first Les Paul trio, Jimmy Atkins, Ernie Newton. Jimmy Atkins, obviously Chet Atkins' older brother. And he told all his friends, I'm a good guitar player. I know everybody, okay? I know everybody, okay? So the trio asked him one day, Les, we're playing these little dives. When are we going to go big time with the people? You know? So what he did, he said, we'll do this. Flip a coin. Heads it's Chicago, tails it's New York. They flip it, they go to New York. Okay, so in New York, what happens, they're playing the same things, these little dives. So finally, Ernie Newton said, Les, I thought you knew everybody. He goes, I do. He goes, well, make a phone call. He's like, I'll call Paul Whitman. Now, Paul Whitman had the biggest band probably in the heyday back then. So he calls Paul Whitman. He says, how about tomorrow morning, Paul? Perfect. We'll be there 9 o'clock. They go down to Paul Whitman's office in New York City, and they got their guitars and everything. So Les says, wait out here. I'll go talk to Paul, see what happens. So he goes, talks to the secretary, and back in the day, the office had the secretary up front with the glass doors and the wooden door where the president was. So they see Les talking to her. Les gets up, goes to the door, goes into Paul Whitman's office. Within 3 minutes, he's escorted out, thrown out of the building. Les never knew Paul Whitman. All right? So as they're walking out of the building, Les looks by the elevator, and there's a gentleman, you can leave that on. There's a gentleman standing by the elevator door. And the person there is Fred Warren. Now, Fred Warren had a band called Fred Warren and the Pennsylvanians, which was another big band. So Les went up to him and said, aren't you Fred Warren? He goes, yeah, and I'm not looking for any more Pennsylvanians. I got 34 mouths to feed. He goes, do you mind if we play? She's like, it's a free world. So Les and his two buddies are playing, and they're watching the arrow come down. So it's getting closer to playing faster and faster. Finally, gets down to the bottom. The door opens. Fred Warren said, get in. By the time they hit the 18th floor, they were members of the Pennsylvanians. 1941, big year for Les. He works at weekends at the Epiphone factory, and he creates the log. If the people, some of you, most of you are Les Paul people, but the log was the very first solid body piece of wood that Les invented. He attaches an Epiphone neck to it and plays. When he played it out first, he was on stage. All it was the neck and the 4x4 plank. He got done playing. He was so proud, but he looked in the audience, and the audience was just like, ugh. So a lady came up to him and said, what was that you were playing? He said, it's an electric guitar. And she said, it doesn't look like an electric guitar. And that's when he realized they were listening with their eyes, okay? So what he did, he attached two wings to it, and that's the actual log. That is right now, I believe, in the Country Music Hall of Fame. But Joe and I, we did get to play that, okay? The clunker, there were 3 Epiphone clunkers that Les did all his recordings on. Gibson Epiphone were rivals back in the day, but Les liked the Epiphone guitar. It was one of these hollow bodies, but what Les did is he took the Epiphone name off and he put a Gibson sticker on it. So all his hits were made with an Epiphone guitar. A lot of people don't know that. And Epiphone has history. Okay. All right, in 1942, Les Paul, his big gig was, I want to meet Bing Crosby. Because Bing had the money, Bing had the contacts. So what he does, he tells the 2 people that are in his band, he goes, we're going to go meet Bing Crosby. And they're like, how are you going to get into NBC? They were living in California. And he said, I got an idea. So he scopes out NBC. And what happened was, every day at 2 o'clock, the employees would go out for a cigarette break. He goes, we got it. We're going to mingle in, and then we'll go in the building. And 2 o'clock comes, they got their equipment. They mingle in with the crowd, they go in. So they set up in a studio and they start playing. So as they start playing, the security guard walks by and goes, who are you guys? And so we're Les Paul Trio. Guys, you You're not on the bill, get out of here. So he escorts him out of the building. As they're walking out of the building, they walk by the vice president's office, and his name was Sid Sinstein. And Les walks by, and Sid looks, he goes, Les? Les turns, he goes, Sid? He goes, what are you doing here? He goes, we snuck in, trying to get a gig. He goes, no more, you work here. The three of them were hired for background music. So what happens next is World War II comes. Les gets drafted by the military, not to be in the war, but to be a musician. He stays in the war for 2 years, or in the Army for 2 years. He makes his records on Armed Force Radio, on Armed Force Records. And we didn't bring one, but we do have records. But he gets discharged from, you can go. He gets discharged from the Army and goes right back to NBC with the thought of meeting Bing Crosby. So he's working there, and he realizes that Bing Crosby has a strict schedule. And the schedule is at 3 o'clock every day, Bing goes to the emergency room. Well, the emergency room was a private bathroom. So Les had the idea, we're going to set up shop, play. He's going to walk by, he's going to discover us. So the next day they set up, they start playing. Les looking at the clock. 3 o'clock comes, here goes Bing Crosby. They're playing, all of a sudden Bing stops. He goes, hey, who are you? Les goes, we're the Les Paul Trio. Bing goes, oh, so you're Les Paul. What are you doing here? He goes, well, we were hired to do background music. He goes, no more, you work here. Monday morning, 8 o'clock. And that's how we met Bing Crosby. Right? Capitol Records, 44 Les experiments. And it's hard to see, but this is his garage in California. And this is where he made these records, the acetates. It's painstaking. He had a deal with the acetate company, and this is his actual garage. In this picture, you can actually see one of the tape machines, and it's that tape machine. That's part of the 8-track system that he gave us. There's a story about that we'll get into. Okay. Recording technology. 1945, what happens is that there's a gentleman, Colonel Ranger. He was with the military, and Les is in New York City, and he's performing with Judy Garland. And as they're performing, Les looks in the corner. There's a guy like waving up and down. Les finishes. Goes, "What do you want?" He goes, "My name is Colonel Ranger, and I got something you might be interested in." So he explains that during the war, once the war ended, he was assigned with another gentleman to go to Europe, go to Germany, France, and confiscate all the belongings that the Germans left behind. One of the things that they left behind was this tape machine. So Les goes in the car with him, he sees it, and right away Les goes back home, calls Bing, and says, "Bing, you gotta come look at this." Bing Crosby took interest in it and had Ampex build 10 units. Les Paul actually got one of those units, and that's how Les made all his records. What he did, we'll get into the next the music chain. Bing Crosby gives him the Model 200. Now back then it was a single track machine, only had one tape. So Les had an idea. If I could multi-track with the records, why can't I do it on tape? So he called Ampex and had them send up an extra head. And what he did is he took it in Chicago and he mounted it next to one of the other heads. And he had Mary sing into it, "Hello, hello, hello." He taped, rewound it, da-da-da. She said 1, 2, 1, 2. And when he played it back, he had sound on sound. It was multi-tracking, the very first one. That's the actual machine. It's hard to see, but he attached one of the heads over here next to that. That machine right now is in our township museum along with the 8-track recorder. Now, Les Paul's idol was Django Reinhardt, right? Now listen, we promised years and years ago, Les was alive. He'd always give Joe and I some things, and he'd always say, "Take good care of this." And he handed me a box, and it was a guitar box like this. And he said, "Take good care of this." And what was in it was 25 guitar picks. And the guitar picks were small, but they had Les's name written on them. And he said, "Take good care of them." And what we do is we travel around the country, and we give them to, there's only, I think, I don't know how many are left, Joe. Maybe a dozen left. And we don't have them, but what Les did is he would make his own guitar picks. He had arthritis, so he'd take plastic, he'd make his own, and put sandpaper on it so he could grip it. Well, remember I said we give those other guitars picks to certain people like Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton. Well, Tony Bullard, I got one for you. Now, let me tell you a story about Tony. Take 2 seconds. When we met him on the boat, all right, Joe made a big mistake. Tony came over, oh, you guys are the Les Paul guys. I thought we're all VIPs on the boat. Yeah, great. Tony said, I want to buy you a drink. Joe goes, Joe made the mistake. I'll have what you're having. Tony goes, really? Looks at the bartender, comes back with a solo cup filled with tequila. Okay? 2 of them, it was good night, Joe. That's how they met. And last night, the first thing we did, Tony says, we got to do a shot of tequila. I said, no. So he did. And guess what? It was good night, Joe. Go ahead. I'll get back to Django. But what happened with Django is how he got the picks. Les was playing at the Paramount, and bouncer upstairs said, hey, Les, there's a guy here to see you. Now, Django was his idol. He never met him. And Les said, well, who is it? The guy upstairs says, Django Reinhardt. And Les said, well, send down Jesus Christ and a 6-pack of beer. And sure enough, Django came down, and that's how they met. Okay. Oklahoma, 1948. It's hard to read this. This is a newspaper clipping. Les Paul was involved in a very serious accident. I don't know if anybody knows this, but in 48, he was driving from Oklahoma to Waukesha. And his wife, Mary Ford, was driving the car. They weren't married yet, but she was driving the car. They got in a real serious accident. The car flipped over. Les was pinned in the car. His right arm was so severely damaged they wanted to amputate it. But he said, I'm Les Paul, you can't amputate it. So after, a couple surgeries, they found a doctor who said, I can save the arm, but I have to set it, and you'll never be able to move it. He had one of his people go get a guitar, and if you see pictures of Les Paul, you're going to notice his right arm was set like this. He could move it around like this, but he couldn't move the arm. So what happened is, he gets in this big bad accident. Now the media is all there because Les Paul and Mary Ford is not really in the picture yet, but Les Paul is the biggest name in music. So Les Paul contacts the newspaper, and they put the name in there. The driver was Iris Watson. He got them to change her name because he was still married to someone else. So the name was changed in the media to Iris instead of Mary Ford. Okay. 1949, he marries Mary Ford. The hits begin. They were the biggest thing in the world. They were the biggest thing in the world. A lot of people say, everybody knows about the SG guitar, right? What was the problem? Why didn't Les like the SG guitar? Anybody? He said it looked like the devil's horns. They said that's not true. In 1964, you can go to the next one. These are some of their early 50s hits. You can go back one, I think. That's good right there. These are some of the big hits. They were the biggest thing probably anywhere when it came to music, okay? This is his house in Mala. It doesn't look like that now. His girlfriend still lives there. The house is going to have to be torn down. It's 26 rooms. It's a big house. Again, why Mala? Everybody told, I love Mala because Mary loved the trees. No, that's not it. It was Mala because Mala was close to New York City, and New York City is where the money was. Les was very, very conservative with his money, very tight with his money, and it goes to a story. I'll just jump off that picture. The payphone. When the performers would come to his house to play, they always used his phone, and it would piss him off because they're using his phone. So what he did, he got a payphone. You use it, you put 10 cents in it. And so when he gave it to us, he also told, there's a book here. He kept track of everybody who used the phone. And when they didn't have money, he took their credit card for 20 cents. And all the numbers are in that book. That's just the way he was. Okay? All right. This is the Listerine Company. Listerine wanted to do a series to promote their company, and they hired Les and Mary Ford to do it. And actually, they made all the old lists. If you look on YouTube, you can see the Listerine movie. They're the stupidest little segments you ever saw. But they had railroad tracks throughout the house, and there's one room, a bathroom that has a door. And I said, what was behind that? He goes, well, that's where they had the camera when Mary would brush her teeth and rinse her mouth out. Okay. These are some of the shots in the house. They built an actual studio in the house. This is outside. When Les and Mary, they had it all enclosed. This is where I met Les, was in that room, but it's part of the house now, okay? If you can see, this is in the garage. You can see the prop, how it's only 8 feet tall. The garage ceiling, I think, is something like 15 feet, okay? The house in Mala, this is his actual studio number 1 with his things. That's studio number 1. That wall panel you see on the side over there, Les was chasing the sound from a very early age. And when he got to Mala, he had a big room, but when he would play, the sound would be dead. So he's like, I got an idea. So he hand cut all those pieces of wood, pine, and stuck them to the wall. There were over 10,000 pieces of wood he had to cut to do it. And when he plugged the guitar in and he played, he still had dead sound. And then he realized he used pine, and pine absorbed the sound. So he went and he varnished it off. You go up there and feel it, you can feel the drips on it. But he varnished every piece of wood, and he actually got it to work. That piece of wall panel, when Les died, they took apart the house. They took everything and sold it. One of those wall panels sold for $8,000 at the auction. Okay, this picture right here, this is the actual console for the 8-track. That is in our museum up in Mala. It was sent back to Les twice. And the reason it was sent back to Les twice, because there were knots tying the wires together that weren't exact. They sent it back, and then they sent the engineer up to fix it because it was just too heavy to move. If you look here on it, these tape machines, that tape machine is this tape machine. So it was part of his 8-track. So I go to his house one day, and he goes, I want to give you something. I said, Les, you gave us to him. We don't need anything else. He's like, no, it's important. So I go over to the house with Joe, and he's like, come on, I want to give you some. So he goes over to the 8-track. Now this machine here is the Ampex 200. He goes, I want you to have this. I said, Les, this is part of the 8-track. It's got to go in the museum. He starts laughing. He goes, you'll know what to do with it when the time comes. I said, Les, I'm not. Well, I did. I put it in that, and it sat in my garage forever. But that's that machine up there. Okay. Les Paul, everybody know what the Les Pulverizer is? People, if you do, it's a little looping device that Les made, and it was a trick. And the trick was that Les could go on stage and multi-track, and people thought his guitar was magic. That guitar is back here. It's a little black box. Eddie Van Halen used to call me every month trying to get that black box. If you look on YouTube, Eddie Van Halen, Les Paul, he talks about getting one. Well, after we met Eddie, he called me once a month he offered us $300,000 for that black box, and we said no. And damn. But what happened was, Les got invited to the White House to perform, and he said, I'm going to use the Les Pulverizer to do it. Well, Mary was deathly afraid of it because they never tested it. Well, right next to Les's development was this farm called Sun Valley Farm, and they were having a Boy Scout jamboree. So what Les did, he used the Boy Scouts as an audience, and he tested the Les Pulverizer, and he got it to work. He went to the White House. Now, when he goes to the White House, they're playing. Now, you got to remember, everything is recorded to work with the pulverizer. Nixon comes up to Les and said, hey, Mimi wants to hear a song. That's Eisenhower's wife. She wants to hear it. Les panics because you can only play what's in line. And Les goes, well, what she want to hear? He goes, the next song she wants is Voy con Dios. Voy con Dios was the very next song on the track. And Nixon sent him the prettiest letter. We just found that letter in a box. If you look up on the stage, there's some books with papers in it. Those books contain a lot of Les's notes, a lot of his notes. And you're free to look through them, and somebody might end up with one of those pages. But move on. This is the inside of the console for the 8-track. Les went through so many soldering irons that he made his own. And he has a transformer. We gave it to Epiphone for their museum. The transformer was about this big. And he said, that'll never burn out. Okay? Actually, if you go back one, please. This is the 8-track system here. The tub, notice it's missing a component right there. And that's the actual tracking. There's 8 of them that they would stack them on. Okay. 73. These are just some of the 5 of the museums where Les is inducted to, Hall of Fames. There's no one else on the planet inducted to all these Hall of Fames. Okay, this is a picture of Les's studio number 2 upstairs. It's hard to see, but the wall panels up here are those wall panels. When I tell you clutter, Les got something delivered to his house every day from someone, whether it be JBL, and he said, I'll never throw it away. Okay. Tributes, this is Paul McCartney. He, when Les died, there's some paper floating around. When Les Paul passed away, Joe and I were asked to write and read his eulogy at his funeral. So we read it in front of, Slash, McCartney, Richie Sambora. When we got done reading it, Richie Sambora came up to us and we gave him a copy of the eulogy. If you see, it's floating around here. If somebody wants to read it, it's sitting up here. Okay. Slash and Joe Satriani, very dear friends of Les Paul. If you look up here, where'd that picture of Slash go, Joe?
He put it somewhere yesterday. I think he stole it.
Only. Well, Les Paul, we'd go to his house and he would give us stuff. One day we're at his house and he's like, you gotta have this, you gotta take this. I said, I don't want it, don't want it. And when Tony brings it, I think he did try to take it. Son of a bitch. Where'd he go? He probably went in his car and he left.
Don't look at me.
Well, you're next to Kim. This is the picture he gave us, and this picture is of Slash, and Slash wrote on it, to Les, you're the best, and under it says R and F in roll. Yeah, you can understand what that is, and he wrote his name. We did a show, we met Steven Adler, and when we saw the picture, Steven's got problems, but Steven cried like a baby. He goes on and Slashy. But, yep, okay. Richie Sambora, Joe Perry, both dear friends of Les Paul's, okay. This guitar right here is Jimmy Page's prototype. I was in Les Paul's house one day, and Les had a guitar every day in his kitchen. And he would take it from his collection, he'd tune it up, clean it, put new strings on. I go there one day, and that's in the kitchen. I said, what's up with this guitar? He goes, well, my guitar broke, so I brought this down, my new house guitar. So he goes on the phone, I pick it up, I plug it in. I look like Michael J. Fox. When you plug it in, and I'm like, whoa. This is Jimmy Page's 1995 prototype. Gibson wanted to come out with it. So what happened was Les came out of the room. He's like, you like it? I said, it's gorgeous. So one day I take him for a flu shot. And as he's, at the flu doctor getting his flu shot, I come back to the house. The guitar is gone. There's a different one. I'm like, ugh. I was like heartbroken. The Page guitar's not there because I used to play it every week. So as I'm leaving, he goes, wait, I got something for you. And he hands it to me. He goes, I want you to have it. I said, Les, no way. He goes, it's going to be a fight. You're going to take it. So I did take it. That guitar right now, that's probably valued at about $250,000. That's out in Nashville at a buddy of ours. He wants to buy it. He's a very dear friend. And as we go on, you'll understand. I never sell anything of Les's, but it's going to end up going. So go ahead. This is me when I was a cop, had a couple pounds on. That's the mayor here, that's Les, and my partner Jerry Filatico. I occupy that office now as the mayor, and that picture actually hangs in my office. The girl up on the right, Mary Myers, my wife's best friend. We take him to the city one night. She never met Les, and it was his birthday weekend, coming up the following week. So they meet at Mary is a scientist, head scientist at M&M and Mars. And she said, I'm going to do something special. So what she did, she went and can you grab me one of those containers? She went and made these little M&Ms. Sure. All right, and we were going to put them on everybody's table at the Iridium. What happened was Les got really sick and we never did it. And they sold them at the auction. I mean, they sold shirts that my wife and I got them for Christmas. It was horrible. But somebody's going to go home with these 4. There's 4 of them. So if you want to add them into the raffle, you can do it that way. But yeah, don't eat them because they're old. Mary, I got to say this, Mary's dad just passed away 2 days ago. Sweetheart guy, but little condolence to Mary. Okay, that's me back in the day. 1982, that guitar Les Paul gave me, I went to his house, I want you to have it. It's a Les Paul prototype, it's got ivory knobs on it, doesn't have toggle switch, it's got a slide. He goes, I want you to put it under your bed first. I said, Les, I don't want it. He's like, well, you're gonna get it. So I leave the house with the guitar, right? So I go home, and I'm thinking up a scheme. So I said, Les, I called him, I said, Les, the guitar don't work. He's like, bring it right back. I said, listen, I gotta go to work at 4 o'clock, I'll drop it off. So I go, get my police car, dress up, I go to his house, I bring the guitar back. He goes, wait, I'll fix it. I said, no. So I leave it. Not an hour later, he calls me back, Jimmy, nothing wrong with it, come get it. I said, well, if there's nothing wrong with it, Les, why don't you take it and put it under your bed for a rainy day? Well, the phone went silent, and he said these words. He said, Jimmy, remember one thing. I said, what's that? I always do the comedy. 2 days later, it was sent to my house via mail. And what we did is we donated it to the, there was somebody got sick. But we donated it to a museum, and they sold it for $80,000. Okay. That's my daughter, Deirdre. This guitar here, when my daughter was born, Les got her that. And not only that, but there's a little story if you got a couple minutes. When she was little, Les said, what is your daughter like? And I said, dolls. He goes, what doll? I said, the American Girl doll, Samantha, right? It was it. She's like, okay, so Christmas comes. I go over, he's got a big box, and he goes, I got a little box for her too. Now the little box, I bring it to my daughter, Christmas morning, she opens up Samantha, she's all happy. She opens the little box, and it's a leather guitar case with the American Girl doll acoustic guitar that Les autographed, the only one in the world. So my daughter got sick, and she's okay now, but we had a real big scare, cancer thing, and what happened was she was anemic. And she's much better now. But after going through Hackensack University Hospital to the cancer and seeing all these kids, my daughter came downstairs with the guitar, and she said, Daddy, you know a lot of people. Do an auction for the kids. So that guitar right now is at the Gibson's headquarters, and they're going to do an auction for that guitar with St. Jude's and Sloan Kettering. Eddie Van Halen. Who knows Eddie Van Halen? Where is he? All right. This is a funny-ass story. It's funny as hell. One day, real simple, when Les called me, it was always at night. He kept the hours of, wakes up at 5 o'clock, he's up all night, sleeps during the day. One day I'm working the cop job, Joe's working, the phone rings, and I look and said, Les. I'm like, oh, Christ, now what's wrong? So I got to say, Les, what's up? He's like, get Joe, come over right away. I'm like, God. So we take off for work, we shoot to the house. We run into the house. Les is standing there with his jacket on. He goes, we got to go somewhere. I'm driving. I drove with Les once. And this is true. We ended up in the cornfield at the end of his driveway. Right? It was ridiculous. So I said, no, we'll drive my Chevy Avalanche. I said, where are we going? He goes, get in. So we get in, he goes, get on Route 17. Now, Route 17 in New Jersey runs Bergen County, that's the main thoroughfare. So we're driving south, and I said, where the hell are we going? Joe's in the back seat. I'm looking at Joe. He goes, get on Route 80. I said, Route 80? We get on Route 80. So where the hell are you going? And he points. And he points to the Meadowlands, the Izod Center. Now, I know that Van Halen's playing that night because all my friends are going. I said, Les, you just can't. Now, you gotta understand something here. It was 2007. He was 90 years old. I said, Les, you just can't show up. He goes, yeah, I know. He's looking out the window. I look at Joe. I said, you better have bail money because we're going down. So we pull up into the Meadowlands, and there's this little security guard. He goes, I roll the window. Now my truck, I had a police shield, So he goes, you got tickets? I'm like, nope. So he looks over, and there's a stage. He goes, Trooper. Now, you couldn't have picked a more mean-looking trooper, stripes up and down his arm, comes up to the car. He looks at the shield. I roll the window down. He goes, hey, bro, you got tickets? I'm like, no. He goes, you're on the job? I said, yeah, I'm a cop up in Mount. He goes, I can't let you in. I said, yeah, but my buddy here, now I'm laughing. Les Paul wants to go visit his buddy, Eddie Van Halen. The trooper looks, he runs around the truck. Les rolls the window down. He goes, howdy. Trooper goes, I just bought a guitar for my daughter. It's got your name on it. Les autographed something for her. I look in front of our car, my truck. 2 state troopers with their lights on take us to the back door of the arena. 2 guys come out in suits, escort us. I said, what about the truck? He goes, we're parked between the tour buses. He goes, leave it right there. We walk in, and I mean, we're by Valerie Bertinelli's dressing room because she was there because Wolfgang was in the band. She didn't trust Eddie to watch him. Walk by Alex's, walk by David Lee Roth, and then all of a sudden the guy goes, Eddie's in this room. His dressing room was across the hall. So he walks up, Les walks up, and he knocks on the door. The voice comes out, and I'm not gonna say, he goes, go the F away. Les looks at me and Joe, go the F away, you just told me. Les opens the door, we hear a crash. I'm like, oh Christ, he just fell. So Joe and I walk around the door, and it's a little 8 by 8, 10 by 10 room. Eddie Van Halen is standing there in khaki pants, sneakers, no shirt. His guitar's on the ground, he's crying. He goes, you came to see me. Les said, on YouTube, Les goes, you came to visit me many years ago. I'm paying that favor back. Well, in that room, we heard every Van Halen riff you can imagine. So I said, Eddie, can you do me a favor? He's like, yeah, what? He goes, I said, listen, my friends are all out in the park. Can you call him and say hi? Guy's name is Tony. Now, Tony's 6'8", he's about 300 pounds. But they're all out there tailgating. He's like, yeah. He picks the phone up. Tony, Eddie Van Halen. No, it is. I'm in the dressing room with Joe, Les. Yeah. So, yeah. No, hey, listen, I would say, great talking to you. Okay, you want Jim again? Oh, okay. Hangs up, gives him the phone. Hello? My friend Tony wouldn't talk to me for 3 weeks. So we're in the room, and there's a picture. It's coming up, you'll see it. But of Les. Les goes, Eddie, you still got it? Les goes, yeah. Les goes up and down the neck. Now, Les is watching Eddie just like this. He's like, not even interested. So Les goes, yeah, I guess you do. Eddie goes, you still got it, Les? He goes, I think so. He takes the guitar. Eddie hands it to him. And Les takes the high E string and just bends it. And all you hear is a sustain. And it's whining. Eddie grabbed the neck. He goes, I get it, Les. So we're in there. So all of a sudden, the owners of the bigwigs of the Meadowlands come over, and they say, listen, we want you to be our guests. So they put us up in this skybox. So now the place is crowded. We get out of the elevator, and people are everywhere. And people are like, who the hell is this? People, what is Eddie Van Halen's father? Then somebody said, it's Les Paul. Well, people are clapping. They get us into this skybox. Now there's a husband and a wife, young couple, sitting in the front row. So we're sitting there, we walk in, we take our coats. The guy looks back at us, he goes, what are you guys doing in here? This is Colgate's box. I said, well, they gave it to us. I said, Les Paul. So the guy's like, Les Paul? And I'm like, yeah, he's... So all of a sudden, Les takes his coat off. He's standing, the guy's standing looking. Les goes right to the front, puts his arm around this girl, and just sits there. She don't know who the hell he is. Has no idea. And she looks panicked at her boyfriend, her husband, and her husband goes, it's okay. But didn't tell him who he was. So Joe and I are in there, and we're having we got alcohol, we got food, we're loving life. After about the 5th song, the first song comes on, and Eddie hits the guitar, and the place just explodes. Les listens to a song. He takes his hand, and I want to tell the story. I wanted to tell you how he came about the electric guitar. But he took his hand, and he put it to the back of the glass, never touched it. And he came back, he looked at me and Joe. He goes, too much bass. Now, Les, when he was young, how he was interested in the electric guitar, the first thing that caught his attention was the telephone. He couldn't understand how the telephone worked. You talk into it, the earpiece, miles away. Until one day he was at home, and he lived across from the train tracks. And what happened was, he came downstairs, and the train was going by, his mother's on the phone, and the window was rattling. He's like, I just fixed those windows. So he touched the glass, it stopped rattling. Took his finger off, it rattled. So what he did next, he went to touch it, but he went to touch it with the back of his hand. Before he touched the glass, he felt something. What he felt was vibration. That's when he realized sound travels with a vibration, the telephone. And that's how he came up with the idea of the string, the railroad track. It was all about vibration. And he was only 8, 9 years old when he did that. No, that's okay. No, I don't want it. But that was the last. So we're at the Meadowlands, and Les gets his coat on. I look at Joe, and I'm like, oh, our party's over. So Les goes, come on, huddle up over here. So he got his coat on. So even the two people that were sitting there, we're all in this room, we're huddled. And Les goes, I got to tell you guys something. I was like, what? He goes, I created a monster. And that was about Eddie. That's the last time they actually spoke and saw each other. But what Les did is, Eddie's guitar tech, Matt Brock, I don't know if you know Matt, but him and Les hit it off that night. So Matt Brock, I guess, is about 6 foot, stocky guy. Les went and got him a Les Paul Pee Wee and autographed and said, a big guy deserves a little guitar. And gave it to Matt. And Eddie was pissed off because Eddie didn't get one. That's how I met Eddie, and that's when he started calling me about the black box. That night, okay, this is in his bedroom. In his bedroom, there were anywhere from 400 to 500 guitars surrounding the room. One day, we go to the house, and he's panicked. He's like, the AC doesn't work in my room. So I call the AC guy. He comes over. He goes, I know what the problem is. I said, what? He goes, they're blocking the intakes around the room. So, but that's the 1952. That's the very first Les Paul ever made. They gave to him. That's in a museum in Nashville, Tennessee. We gave to him. Okay. That's a picture of Les's room. Okay, the guitars, and the room is huge. It's a circular room. The guitars were just everywhere. One day we're at the house, and Les goes to Joe, goes, when's your birthday? He goes, March. He goes, no, what year? He goes, 59. He goes, I'll be right back. Honest to God, this is a true story. I said, if he comes out with a 59 Les Paul, I'm going to shoot you. And he came out with a 59, the #1 reissue, that we ended up giving Artemis Pyle Band. Anybody ever heard Artemis Pyle Band? Jerry Leiter, who's the lead guitar player, we met him, and we ended up giving that guitar to Jerry Leiter. That's it. Okay. Why Les Paul from start to finish? What happened was, in 2006, Les had pneumonia very bad. He almost died. And after he got out of the hospital, he recovered. One night he calls Joe and I up. And he goes, come on over. I'm like, all right. So I get Joe, we go over to the house. And this time we went to the house, it was different because usually we go in and we go to the kitchen counter and we sit on one side, Les on the other side. Les would go to the bottle opener and he'd open 3 beers. Now Les never drank his, Joe and I did. So one night I said, why do you do that? Open 3. He goes, this way I can say that the 3 of us had a beer. Because he didn't drink, he had a near beer. But he took a pen, a permanent marker, and wrote on it Les Paul G3. Well, G3, Les numbered some of his guitars G1 through G300. I said, G3's a guitar. Why would you? He goes, because every time you two aren't here, that number will remind me of the 3 of us having drinks. So when he passed away, his girlfriend called me up, and she gave that to me and said, now when you and Joe have a drink, think of Les. Now you have to understand something, that Les, he had beer in his refrigerator, but the only way he got beer is when the Iridium Club didn't sell it, they would give it to him, okay? Meaning it was rat beer, no one would drink it. So when I got it, I dumped it out, and the rat-ass beer that we used to drink, no wonder my stomach's so screwed, but there's some beer in there you don't even want to look at. Why Les Paul start to finish? So the night we go over to his house, usually we go and sit at the counter. This time the house was dark, and he met us at the door, and he said, come on in. So I said, okay, so we go in, and he said, follow me. So we go in the kitchen, walk through the kitchen, into the dining room, and he's just pointing. And I look at Joe, I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on. So we go into the living room, all his recording stuff's there. So as we walk through, he goes, come on, let's go into the studio, then let's go to upstairs, the guitar room. I look at Joe, I'm like, I don't know what the hell's going on. He sits on the bed, and he said, Joe, pick up that guitar. So Joe picks up this guitar, and he goes, I've got a lot of pressure. And I said, what's the matter? He goes, well, I'm getting older, and everybody wants my stuff. He goes, I don't want to sell it to people where they're going to go resell it and go buy a yacht. I want people to look at my things and be able to say, I did this. Because earlier he was very, very strict on anybody seeing what he did. But he realized, I want people to see it, and I just don't want people to buy it and be on the market. And I said, Les, I don't know what to say is going to happen to all your guitars. He goes, it's really got me stressed. And you could look, he had his glasses on, you could look, he was just bothered. So I sat there and I looked at Joe and I said, I got an idea. So he's like, go on, what's your idea? I said, when you pass away, you go wherever you go. Joe and I will take everything you gave us and we'll travel around the country and we'll let people see, touch, and play your stuff and tell your story. He took his glasses off. He said, that's a deal. Let's go have a drink. That's why we do it. It's not about the money because we don't get paid for this. We don't take money for it. Tony and Scan was nice enough to get us a room, a rental car, and the donation thing you did for the thing will pay for some of the gas. But this was never about money with us. We just love doing what we do, and it's so fun to bring it to places where less never was. We do have something while we're on the subject. We always give something away to a veteran. I know there's other veterans in here, but we always give something away. Les was in the military. We always like to give certain things away to certain people, and I wish we had enough stuff where we could give it away to you. But what we're doing tonight, I got it right here. Hey, Dennis, come on up here. Dennis, that's you. Come on up here. It's...
Go, Dennis! Go, Dennis!
Go get him, Dennis. Go get him. I'll let you. You can give it to him. Don't. What it is? It's an autograph. I will. It's an autographed pick card that Les would give us, and we decided that every veteran. Now, Dennis, I'm not sure what service, what branch were you in? Navy? Army? Navy. And what conflict did you serve?
Desert Storm, Desert Shield, provide comfort. I was off Iraq, off Iran.
I want to say thank you on behalf of Joe I and everybody. So what we gave Dennis, we gave him a guitar pick, and we made up little stickers, and we stick them on it, and it's of Les playing when he was in the military. And he's in his uniform. And we want to give that to you, and you hang on to that.
Thank you very much.
And we'll give you something else because we got lots of stuff to give away. All right? Thank you, Dennis. That's basically why we do this. And again, it's not about the money. But the donations will pay for some of our gas, but it's never going in our pocket to go buy beer or anything like that. A quick story about the beer. Doing this show, we started in 2010, and we got connected with Gibson Guitars. They saw what we did, they really like it, and they made the crucial mistake of offering their tour bus to us. Right? Now, we would travel around all over the country in a tour bus. Tour bus is great for one day, because after that one day, you're so hungover, and you just want to go back to it. We did a show in Wisconsin, and no lie, I'm in the back of the bus in the bunk, and the bus was gorgeous. I come crawling out of the bunk. I open the door, and Joe's up front with Donnie, our driver. Now, Donnie looks in the mirror, and he goes, hey, Joey, look at that candy ass crawling. He can't even stand up and go throw up. But it was a lot of fun. They sold the buses when Gibson reorganized after they went bankrupt. And Gibson is making more guitars, selling more guitars than ever. They're back. And they're going to stick straight with guitars. And let me tell you what, they're back. And hopefully we'll continue to be with them and continue. Right? This picture right here, if you saw on Tony's post, was the last time Les Paul performed. This is him walking off stage. It's the last time he performed live at the Iridium Jazz Club in New York City. So I took the picture, and I did, if you saw what Tony did, Joe, they're over here. I only have, I think, you have to save one of them because I have to make copies. There's one in there that has just the, it's an actual sticker on it instead of the print. We're going to give these away. On the back it states what it is. It's just something that we do. We like to share the stuff. Somebody said, what happens if you give everything away? I said, show over. We'll never give everything away. We have a lot of stuff, but we like to share. People are going to walk out of here with some really cool stuff. Some really cool stuff. You're going to walk out of here, and it's just such an honor to do it. When we met Tony, and we kept saying, yeah, we're going to do it. We'll come down by you. And finally, 2 weeks ago, we hooked it up. But it's such late notice, we couldn't get a bunch of the guitars that are in Nashville. So we kind of scrambled different museums, local, and got what's here. Now, this is the end of our program, but what I want to do, people, come up, play the stuff, pick the stuff up. We drove 6 hours, not for you to sit there and stare. Play it. We're going to turn on the amplifier. Again, there is one rule. If you plug in a guitar or plug in anything else and you get electrocuted, you are on your own, because we don't know what Les did to this stuff, all right? So you people are on your own. And I do ask one thing. Everybody's got the card in front. How I said in the beginning, if you could just write something on our Facebook page if you liked it. That's the only way we get publicity. But that's going to be the end of the presentation now. I want to invite everybody, pick it up. Oh, I got another thing. Who wears reading glasses? I never did this before. It just caught my eye.
Everybody does. We're old here.
All right. These are Les Paul's glasses, okay? They're hers now.
All right. No.
Oh, yeah. I don't lie. We were given a lot of stuff by Les, and you know what? It's just what we do is we share stuff, and that's to see the smiles on your faces. Les Paul told me years ago. I said, "How did you become Les Paul, so famous?" And I was telling the gentleman we met at a bar last night. Gee, go figure. And I said, I went to Les. I said, "How'd you become Les Paul so famous?" He said, "Jimmy, there's a few things." And it hits on what Tony said. He said, "Never forget who you are, where you came from, and who helped you get where you are." He said, "Always do things complete, never do them half-assed." And he said, "The most important thing is," he said, "it's not hard to be nice." And, that's what we do. And I'd like to share that with you. As Tony said, the act of kindness. If I didn't answer that telephone, none of this would be possible. My lieutenant gets the most credit. Henry Fedora, he died many years ago, but he could easily answer the phone, and he would have hung up. Called, look in the phone book. But I said, "Listen, I got a snowplow. I'll go do it." And I did it, and it changed my life. It really did. We travel. We meet so many great people like you people here, and we're going to keep doing it. It's not going to end. But just look us up on Facebook to be at a theater near you. It's one of those. But we'll go anywhere. And if you need anything.
Did you ever fix the mailbox?
Oh,
No.
yeah.
Oh.
Go back to the mailbox.
So, I forgot about the mailbox. Yeah. I'll get back to the mailbox. But there's guitar strings up here. Damn. There's guitar strings up here. Gibson would send Les Paul guitar strings, and these old strings are from the 40s and 50s. And, how many got there? 5? Yeah, you so over. All right, here's what we're going to do. All right, I'm going to let Tony do it. These are strings that are actually from Les's collection. Now, some of the strings you're going to see that they look used. Well, they were, because Les never threw them away. He'd use them and then put them back. So we're going to give 5 or 6 boxes. Let Tony pick who gets them, and they're actually.
Great. Everybody's going to hate me.
And
Oh man, I got one.
and that's just one of the things we do. There's some really cool things we're going to be giving away. Oh, I got a story for you. Here. See, this is the problem. There's so many friggin' stories that it just, one day, when Les dies, okay? One day when he dies, right? He dies. So Gibson finds out we got all this stuff. So they invite us down to Nashville, okay? So I said, "Joe, let's take a guitar or two, see if they know what it is." So we take some boxes, and we take, a lot of stuff. So we go to Newark, I'm not supposed to say it, but Newark Airport. And now, I'm a retired cop. So I got my Jaguar bag, I throw it on a security thing. The terminal's packed. So all of a sudden, I'm standing there, waiting in line, right before the machine. All of a sudden, I look outside, and the fire truck's coming up the side. Wow. I look behind it, Port Authority cops. Wow. I look, and here comes 2 guys with rifles. Here comes a guy with a dog. I look, and the terminal's starting to thin out. So I'm standing there, Joe's behind me, and starting to thin out. There's like 180 people. It's like 100, and there's 50. Me and Joe are still there. So I look at Joe, I said, "You don't have anything in your bag, do you?" He's like, "No." So All of a sudden, there's 5. They said, whose Jaguar bag is that? I said, right here. Against the wall I go. Joe's against the wall. Guns drawn. Guns drawn. But I said, listen, I'm a retired cop. My ID's in it, but don't move. So the guy goes, takes my ID, my badge, takes it out. He goes, what do you have in your bag? What are you doing? I said, well, and thank God for a TSA agent. I said, well, we're going to Nashville. We were Les Paul's friends, and we got a lot of his stuff were taken down. And the TSA agent saved us because he goes, the Les Paul? And I was like, yeah. He goes, what do you got in your bag? I said, well, I got a box. I got, you can turn the, yeah, we're done. If you turn the lights on, because you're going to need to see this. So, I mean, you got to see it. The place is cleared out. Joe and I are hands on the wall. We're up against the wall. So, you know, everybody's going to laugh, but at the time, I think I really peed my pants, you know, because I'm sitting like, oh my God. So you go, take your bag and open it. Now I got a fireman standing back. The cops are standing like this, and this is the box that they gave us. That I had in my thing. I had it wrapped in plastic, and it's something that it's something that Les made, and he's got written on a capacitor, decade, something. He goes, "What is in the box?" I'm like, "I don't know. I never opened it. It was taped shut."
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is what they saw on the X-ray machine.
Nice.
And it looked like a bomb. I goes, what is that? I was like, I don't know, never opened it. It's not a bomb. They wouldn't let us take it on the plane. They had to leave it in there. But that was just, you know, the things we did. So anyway, we'll move on. So, I go home, I guess it was 2000.
Get your microphone.
Never use them. 2016. I'm in the garage, right now. My new garage, my house. When I had all the Les Paul stuff, my garage door was wide open. We had a house that wasn't, you know, that well maintained. We didn't have much money, but had no garage door. And that's where I stored all my Les Paul stuff. I had the tape machines they gave me. I had speakers. So I'm in the new house where my man cave, my garage. I'm in there and I'm looking. My wife comes out, and I said, my wife and daughter like horses. Okay. So I'm pissed off because everything's horses. I hate horses. And they stink. Bugs, they just stink. So, but we got a relationship. I love golf. I love Les Paul stuff. And they got horses. They're gold. So I said, when are you going to get rid of all this horse stuff? You got blankets. You think I got 10 horses? She goes, when are you going to get rid of all Les Paul stuff? I'm like, no. She goes, when are you going to get rid of the tape machines? They just sit. I said, they're going into a museum. I said, pull it out, bring it out. So she grabs it, pulls it out. Tony, open the door. She opens the door, and she said, what is that? I look, I start crying. Let me take that thing out of there.
Oh, there's a mailbox.
Behind it was the mailbox with a ribbon on it. He knew the entire time that I knocked it over. And he hid it in there. You can take it out, But the entire mailbox with the post was in there with a big red ribbon on it. And there it is. And he hid it in there knowing that I would open it up someday to find it. And that reminds me of how we met. So, but that little thing in front, that's a control panel for his echo chamber that he built in the house in Mawa. He had a freezer door, concrete room. It was the world's first ever echo chamber. And that's a controller. There's a piece of tape that says Les/Mary, how the echo went. But that's how, you know, that's the relationship lesson I had. But with that ended, there's so many stories with this stuff. It's just, the PBA card. Everybody know what a PBA card is? Yeah. In New Jersey, you get a PBA card. Cops give you a little plastic card. It's a get out of jail free card. You get 10 friends, you give it to you, and if you get pulled over for speeding, you hand it to the cop. Cop says, okay, you get out of jail free. Only once. Well, what happened in 1961, Les Paul was the biggest thing in the world, right? Our PBA got a hold of the state, and they made, at that year, one for the state of New Jersey, and they made it out of sterling silver. That is a card. What happened was, Les kept it with him at all times. So what happened was, you can pass it around. You can pass it around. What happened was, in 2000, he died in 2009. I got a phone call from Arlene. She said, you have to come over right away. Les is very ill. So I go over to the house. I run into the house, and I knew something was wrong. You know, people are just like, well, you know, I had no love for music. I mean, you talk about two people that were so out of the realm of music as Joe and I. So it was about a year ago, we go back to the house. This will be the last story, I think. So we go back to the house, and Arlene is there, and she said, "You two sit down." And I'm like, "What's up?" She goes, "You know how you came into the show." I'm like, he called looking for someone to plow his driveway. And I'm like, "No." And I said, "That's how we met." And she goes, "No, that's not." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "He was looking for you two." And it hit me. I'm like, "What do you mean?" And it's exactly, he didn't need to snow the driveway plowed, but he was looking for someone who was so far out of the realm of music that he could talk to. We go to, so we never talked music. I mean, he talked about stuff, but he enjoyed just the company. 3 times a week for 29 years, Joe and I were at his house. But the mailbox, that just cracks my ass up. That just cracks me up. But there's so many stories. I'll be here all day. We got a 6.5 hour ride. People, come up, plug into it. We're going to move the amplifier down, plug into it, have fun. Again, don't get electrocuted, and we're not responsible. But have fun, enjoy it. And I want to say thank you to everybody, Scandals, Tony, everybody in the room. Thank you so much. All right, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, let's do some raffles.
Don't put your mouth on the harmonica.
Already did.